Welcome to the Generation Hustle podcast, a show that explores the world of business, entrepreneurship, and culture, all centered around the millennial. I'm your co-host Sheriston, alongside my good friend Amin, and today we speak with Akosua Asare, founder and CEO of Essence Luxe Couture. At the age of 21, Akosua developed alopecia, a condition where the immune system attacks hair follicles, which leads to hair loss. The damage was so severe that she was forced to shave her head entirely. Around this time is when she realized the huge disconnect faced by similar individuals. There was not a lot of options for the average wig consumer. Custom wigs are extremely expensive and limited to standard styles, colors, and head sizes. And on top of that, there was no quote-unquote trying on process, so to speak. So Akosua channeled her experience into an opportunity. Essence Luxe Couture takes ethically sourced hair from Cambodia through an arduous month-long process to create handmade luxury wigs. The company mission is to help those who suffer from hair loss while breaking down the traditional barriers to entry for minorities in the beauty industry. Today, the company creates custom wigs based on your specifications and is looking to expand this function with proprietary AI technology. The end goal is to create an immersive experience in which you can virtually try on wigs of all shapes and colors, all from the comfort of your home. We talked to Akosua about her journey building the company, her experience as a female Black founder in the tech space, and the future capabilities of artificial intelligence in the beauty industry. Beauty advice is not exactly my forte, so I'm going to let Akosua take it from here.
We also want to give a special shout out to today's sponsor, Podcorn. So let me ask you this. You're a growing brand looking to partner with other companies to help scale your business? Or you're like us, a podcast looking to brands to partner with? Like many business founders, you find it extremely difficult to find these opportunities. Well, that was their case originally for the Generation Hustle podcast before we started using Podcorn. Podcorn is a marketplace connecting podcasters to amazing sponsorship opportunities, such as host-read ads, interview segments, topical discussions, and more. With Podcorn, there is no middleman. Podcasters of all sizes can browse and choose opportunities right on the platform, set their own rates, and collaborate with brands directly with no exclusivities. This opens up the opportunity for you as a business or a podcast to scale much faster. So what are you waiting for? Check out podcorn.com to start growing.
Thank you so much for being on here. We're super excited for this and we're honored to hear about your company. I came across your story through an article through Schulich. They had posted about your company and I was like, this is super interesting. I want to understand AI and beauty industry. So thank you again.
Yeah, my pleasure. And thank you.
So I'm going to start off just kind of like with your general story of understanding where you came up with the idea and how you came up with Essence Luxe Couture. So maybe you can walk us through like the early stages of how you came to finding the company.
Yeah, so I was in high school and I started losing my hair. And it was, I'm sure you can imagine how challenging it would have been, especially being, I think regardless of your gender, it would be challenging at such a young age, but
For sure.
Even more so in my case. And just my entire experience with wigs was just fairly negative. I found the wig shop attendants were very impersonal. The wigs made me look ridiculous. They were very unnatural. And even when I thought that I had invested, and found a good one, it didn't last very long, just a couple months. So I did this for a couple years. And I was just like, how is it that, you have these celebrities that wear wigs all the time so openly and the average consumer can't get anything better.
Right.
So that's why I set out to make something that was so high caliber as a celebrity wig. One that's extremely natural, usually custom fit to the celebrity, whichever one, more attainable for the average consumer. And the idea for application, just as soon as I thought of the company and I'm like, I want to start it, I started, within a couple months. I'm like, having a great product alone doesn't actually solve all the problems that most of the consumers have. They didn't even solve the problems that I had, So I needed to look beyond just a product and see how I could provide an end-to-end solution.
For sure. Yeah, I like that so much. So like, I just want to go back to one point that you made there. So in terms of wig shopping, what was it that kind of held you back in that area and that you wanted to solve? Like, what do you do differently that you found was a problem in the industry itself?
Yeah, so a couple things. The first is they have a very narrow selection of styles and colors and lengths and so on, and a lot of them just didn't fit me, and I didn't have a choice for anything that did suit my face. Maybe it would suit my neckline or my jawbone, whatever.
Right.
There are specific features that we have when they're so different. Everyone looks different. So to
Yeah.
have a standardized style, and even worse, they had standardized sizes, which it's mind blowing actually, because we have such different heads. So that's
Yeah.
one thing. Another thing was the education process was non-existent. They
Yeah.
relied on you solely to do everything. You had to do your research, find your own stylist, and then figure out how to put the wig on. And most times, you'd spend hours literally on YouTube trying to figure out these tutorials, and the wig still wouldn't look good on you because a lot of these, tutorials are paid. So you don't really know which one to go with and what's going to work for you.
Right.
And you ultimately resolve to just taking the wig to a stylist, shelling out another $100 to $200 to have it installed, and then doing that every couple months.
That is hectic. For a guy who's probably going to lose his hair in the future, I didn't know about any of this.
Yeah, no, that's actually funny. But what we do differently is, so of course our products are custom fit. So we we have a proprietary process that we use to measure the customer's head, and our app would streamline that because it would take their measurements virtually. And then we have a proprietary process that we use to measure the customer's head. And we plan on streamlining that process through our application by taking their head measurements virtually. So that actually really makes a big difference in making a wig look as natural as possible. And then secondly, and this is something that excites me about our application, because it allows us to take all these points from a customer's face, their skin tone, their personality, even their social, just based on their social media profiles, and actually custom create, personalize a wig just for them, so that you don't have that issue about trying to make a wig that was made for probably a mannequin to fit you.
Yeah. And so walk us through like the procurement process. I'm kind of interested to know, like, did you know how to kind of create a wig ad per se, and then combine all these aspects of, the digital aspect kind of going on? But like, walk us through the procurement process and how you learned about how to create a wig.
Yeah, so it's really interesting because I listen to all these podcasts, like the founder of Allbirds. They asked him, like, did you go to school for fashion? No. Like, he literally had none of these skills. So and that's this position I found myself in. I don't know how to make a wig. It was a lot of learning, having to be open. One of the things that I did actually that was interesting is right at the beginning, I actually just took whatever was available. I found a supplier that was just making wigs for other shops, and I got a select wigs, because my thing was I wanted to see, because I didn't have money or the resources to go out and spend all this time researching.
Right.
I didn't even have the ability to find the people who I would need to ask these questions. So I kind of had to go right out into the field and actually see how people would react to a product. So I took a generic product that you find anywhere and put it up and saw what customers, or made improvements. Like, I looked at it myself, made improvements. Then I found a workshop in Asia that would, because a lot of them won't do this, but that would take all my nitpicky, my really, really detailed construction criteria and try them out for me. They would make one improvement based on what I'd ask, and then I'd put it out there and sell it and see what the feedback is. Maybe there was a feature that I included that really isn't necessarily, nobody cares, doesn't make a difference. Maybe there's one that's absolutely crucial it's missing. And so I found all that out to finally get to this final and current iteration of the wig that we have. But it took a lot of trial and error. trying things and then putting it out there, and being very willing to hear customer feedback. And sometimes it wasn't positive, and being able to take that constructively and make improvements, tangible improvements. And I was very fortunate to have found a workshop that I contract who is willing to make the wigs at a small scale, because they're still small,
Yep.
with such detail and with all our list of complex construction features. So that I think was luck, actually, because we went through a lot of really, really bad wig makers and suppliers and contractors. So
Yeah, no, I actually really like that because if I think of like a tech or an app, at least per se, you go to multiple iterations and obviously go through feedback, but it's really cool to see it that you kind of applied the same logic in terms of the wig itself. So that's very unique. Yeah, like usually when you think of like a tangible product, you usually think, hey, I'll go through one or two iterations, but you went through a full cycle of customer feedback, got everything going, and then you finally had like something that you liked and your customers liked. So I think that's really important for like listeners to know that your first product is generally never going to be a success, and make sure you always kind of get that customer feedback, or at least from your users or your individual target market, and try to iterate off of that.
And one thing too, I was forced to do it that way because I didn't have much money. Like I kind of had to constantly be generating revenue at every point so that I can keep funding the business, right? So that's also another way, because a lot of companies, especially tech companies, they kind of don't really have any revenue for a very long time.
Yeah.
And I mean, like literally, I've had investors tell me, mentors tell me, like, just put something out there, even if it looks like trash, you're gonna find that one customer who's willing to try it out, so that at least you can kind of go based off of that and then continue on.
100%. Yeah, it's like that quote, right? Your first anything is going to be terrible, but you just got to start and you just got to put it out there.
Yeah, absolutely.
So I like that. I like that a lot. But so your app that you keep mentioning, it's called the Muse. Is that right?
Yeah, so the app doesn't actually have a name. It's funny.
Oh, I saw Muse, but
yeah, no, you're right.
Okay.
We call the AI Muse almost like how you'd call, Apple's voice control Siri.
Yeah,
right.
We call the AI Muse. So Muse is, we refer to her as a person, like an individual.
Okay.
But the application itself, we're still working on a name. So in the meantime, Muse is a good name. It's okay to call it Muse.
Okay. All right. So can you talk to us about that and the development process, in terms of how that's going and how that came about?
Yeah. So again, once I started, like within like 3 months into selling, so I started selling these wigs on Etsy because all the wigs are handmade.
Yeah.
And in most cases back then, I partnered with salons and had the wigs, salon dyed as well. So immediately I realized there was a lot of inefficiencies, just in the industry in general. And as I said previously, products alone, no matter how thorough or thoughtful or well constructed it was, there was just inefficiencies that regardless were just getting in the way of a good product.
Right.
And I needed to figure that out. So one of the things that I noticed was actually my biggest competitor is the conglomerate of wig shops. So not one specific one or brand, but all wig shops, because they're local, they're close to the customer. You get to go in and touch and feel. And in this industry in particular, people are still hesitant to come online because, there's a lot of perceived risk. So I wanted to mitigate that as much as possible, mimic that touch and feel, and create an experience that actually surpass what you get in store. So our application is AI powered, and we call our AI Muse. Muse microanalyzes customer images, videos, their social media profiles, and then our internal data to create highly personalized hairstyles that would complement and enhance their skin tone, facial features, and even personality. Muse could go so far as to, cater a hairstyle to your career or even, your favorite celebrity. And then you can actually virtually try on your hairstyle and purchase the one you'd like. And then we would recreate that design onto one of our wigs, physical wigs, and mail it out to you. So
That
we've
is
combined,
so cool.
yeah, so we've combined that virtual, again, mimicking that in-store experience, and then taking it a step further and combining it with our existing product. Right now, the application isn't completed, but we're working on developing the algorithms that will run the AI. That does take a bit of time because what you want to have essentially is a large data set. So just keeping it simple to not get into too much detail because there's a lot of proprietary details.
Sure.
But like, for example, I mentioned skin tone and facial features. There's a lot of various shades of skin tones, and then facial features, face shapes, all those different things. So feeding our AI with all that data so that they can spit out hairstyle recommendations that really would look good on you in real life that you could actually wear, and not just like a cartoon avatar or Snapchat filter. Is really, really important. We want to get that stage right because that's actually the foundation of the app.
Yeah, for sure. And that's so cool. Like you wouldn't even need to see us physically to have our measurements taken or anything. Like I can send you a picture and we're good to go.
Yeah. So actually what you do is you take a picture or a video, you just turn left, turn right so that we can just get a couple of angles, and use it actually take your measurements, your head measurements just from that, so that we can get a more accurate measurement than what we're doing right now, which is sending the customer a very, very detailed with pictures, step by step, so that they can do it. And with our application, we would do it through the app.
Okay. So it's applying that ease and convenience in your solution through the application.
Exactly. It's essentially doing exactly what we're doing now, but just streamlining it, making it more efficient and making it customer friendly.
Like when I was reading up on it, like my first thought was when you see like video game avatars, they're just like rotating and you're just like switching their outfits and their hairstyles. I'm like, that's so like, this is real life now, and that's literally what you're bringing to life with that.
Yeah. It's actually funny because it's funny that you say that because my brother was telling me about, I think it's like 2K20, NBA 2K20, and how they have, this thing that literally takes your face. He said it scans your whole face, takes like an hour to create this avatar that looks exactly like you.
Yep.
And then you can play with it. It's crazy. So technology is come so far, and it definitely is there. And I'm hoping to bring it to this particular industry first.
For sure. Yeah. And I love that. And so you mentioned, obviously it's still in development right now, but that's kind of like the direction that you're headed in. So obviously there's still an introduction coming, but in terms of other capabilities, I think you touched on a few already in terms of, hey, like you can even figure out your future hairstyles and stuff like that. Like where else, you don't need to disclose too much. I understand you want to keep some things under lock, but where else are you looking to expand those capabilities?
Yeah, so actually so many places. Right now we're just focused on wigs, but we want to get into hair extensions. And actually it's really big right now. There's a couple of YouTubers circulating these videos where it's on men. They have these, I don't know if they're toupees or wigs. It's funny because I don't even know what they are, and like I should know. And they cut them and they look like so fresh, and I want to get into that.
Yeah. Are they the ones that are glued on to your head or something? Or
I don't know because they actually don't show every single step of the process. I think they're trying to keep, obviously so that, they won't be copied.
Right.
So there are certain things that they kind of just jump over. So you can't really see the entire process, but they show, most enough. So I'm not exactly sure what they do, but they even have ones that are like beards, and I mean, it's so cool what they have. Yeah, it's really, really cool. So I really want to expand the product line. That's one, just plug in my phone here or my computer. Two, I want to work on expanding the general use of the product. So there's so much that we can do in terms of film. There's about $750 million spent a year on just the wig portion of costumes for movies, theaters, especially the high profile ones. Like think Khaleesi's wig from Game of Thrones,
Right.
And she doesn't just have one, she probably has like 20,
Yeah.
of that same piece. And they're extremely high quality. You wouldn't even know that she's a brunette. She's not actually a blonde. That's how good quality these wigs are. So there's actually a lot of room for streamlining their design process for those characters that we can build into the application. And then we can partner, and we plan on partnering with bigger brands like Sephora and Sally's Beauty to set up the application as is in their brick and mortar stores, just so that we can still grab that brick and mortar customer. There's always those who, hold on tight.
Yeah.
And partnering with brands like Sephora really allows us to expand the demographic that we can reach, while also expanding their segment of the hair market, because right now they dominate in cosmetics, but not so much as a hair care provider. So I really think that we could give them that advantage as well by setting up a kiosk with our application in store, so customers could go in, play around with the app and purchase.
That's amazing. I think that the future is bright, especially with this. I think even and I'm picturing like even in malls and stuff like that, where you go in and have the VR experience with video games. It's like you can have a VR experience just for fun. You don't even have to make that purchase, but just to have fun with like different hairstyles and different looks and stuff like that. So
and that's one thing that I love about this, because there's so much shareability in it. Like there's so much of it that you want to share on social media. There's so much virality to it, even just for fun. So
exactly, yeah, and that's where the casual walking by person is going to catch on to it, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
So just dealing with that, like in terms of bringing something into the store so that consumers can kind of sit there and kind of go through these different options, brings me to my next point of kind of what we're dealing with right now with the global pandemic. Has the current situation affected you at all? In terms of your business, and do you think I'll let you start with that first?
It's been really interesting, actually. So our workshop is in Asia. So right off the bat, as soon as it started in January, we were already having some supply chain issues when things were being closed there first. Well, not first, but sooner than us. I didn't know what to anticipate really until things started to shut down and they started to tell us stay home. I remember feeling extremely anxious, but something crazy happened, and this is when I realized that like I really have honed in on who my competitor actually is.
Right.
Our sales like skyrocketed.
Yeah.
And I was like, why are people buying wigs? It's not a necessity right now. And I realized that it's because the brick and mortar stores are closed.
Right.
They are coming online because they're forced to, right? And a lot of them are staying online. So it was really, really fortunate for us that, we were able to, not just survive, but do so well, in the first 3 months. But then our supply chain issues caught up to us. And so we've essentially been out of stock for a couple months.
Right.
Yeah, so of course, when you don't have stock, people can't buy things.
For sure.
But that's okay, because, the first 3 or 4 months almost made up for it and then some. It would be one thing about saying, no one's buying my stock, but I'm out of stock totally. So I guess that's a good excuse. But yeah, so that's the effect it's had. It just kind of just forced us to actually rethink our supply chain, because it revealed a lot of holes and problems that were already there that we just kind of were working around because we just didn't have the capital. So it really just brought certain things to light that, again, like I said, were already there, so that we can fix it just in general. And then again, also made us realize that, again, we know who our competitor is and we're correct, and they are the focus, and this application in what it will address is correct, and even more so relevant now that you have a lot of people moving online, so that they can still have that virtual touch and feel experience.
For sure. Yeah. And I think, especially with the app capability, I think the future is there for that. So it's definitely a huge market in terms of bringing that aspect of online in the beauty industry to life, which is kind of where I wanted to understand, because your company actually recently won Shopify's People Choice Award. Because they recognize the market for this, and they recognize kind of like what you're doing with this. So can you talk to us about what that means to you and the company as a whole for having that award?
Yeah, so actually it's the Schulich People's Choice Award. So this was the award that I won at the Schulich Pitch Night. And actually...
That's totally my mistake. I'm reading this wrong.
That's okay. That's okay. I think there was like 700 people online because it was a virtual pitch competition, and they voted, and I came as number one. So that was exciting, extremely validating, because one of the things that I really feel self-conscious about is wigs. Like the odds of the audience that I'm speaking to knowing wigs, why it's relevant, why you should care, is slim to none. Like it likely is that they have no idea, and so sometimes I feel really uneasy. I almost feel like, how can I present this in a way so that people who don't know will understand? So it was extremely validating, because to have 700 plus people, most of which have no idea, how wigs work, say that, hey, this is a great idea, really encouraged me.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And so now let's kind of like talk about building the actual online storefront, and then, in this case, like the experience that you've built. So walk us through like the typical customer experience, and like how you've iterated over time based on, feedback that your customers have given, or some trends that you've noticed, and how's the storefront evolved since then?
Yeah, so one of the things, I actually started selling my wigs on Etsy, and this is really funny. Etsy actually made it actually was, I didn't even realize it, but it was like training wheels. The platform was so easy to sell on. Literally, I was spending $2 a day on ads, like literally.
Yeah.
And that was even the max. Like I couldn't even go over that, but it was actually enough to make a lot of money with such a small ad spend, because it's such a concentrated market, and they tend to attract a specific clientele. People are there and they're ready to buy. You don't have to do much to convince them. And then also, we didn't have any issues with fraud, and I assumed that was because we were great, but it was actually because Etsy was filtering through all those orders, so we wouldn't even see them.
Yeah.
So when we moved to our own e-commerce site, all of that hit me. Like, spending, even $50 a day on ads may not work. Now you're not just competing with other Etsy merchants on this, super specialized platform. I'm competing with the world, that's a whole different ballgame, So I actually started with BigCommerce. It's an American company. The platform was, I liked their platform. They had a lot that came, what they call out of the box. So just with your basic plan, they had a lot of features that came with it. So you didn't need very many apps for specific things like creating discounts or, issuing store credit, stuff like that. But I just found that them being American, they tended to cater all their merchants, all their partners, everyone catered to American companies. They wouldn't even service us. So right now, what's really big is consumer financing. So, you split up your payment into 4. We could not find a merchant that would work with us because we are in BigCommerce and we're Canadian. If they would work with BigCommerce, they didn't work with us because we were Canadian. If they work with Canadians, they didn't work with BigCommerce. And I was waiting, I think it was like a year and a half for them to, expand these things, and they never did. And I realized that I'm probably losing a lot of money waiting on these things. So I moved over to Shopify, and honestly, I haven't looked back since. Shopify's platform, and maybe this is coming from BigCommerce because I was extremely familiar with the platform, and it was a little bit more on the complicated side on the back end. But Shopify system is like for me at least, coming from that, I felt like, oh my gosh, this is like like I can focus on, you know, the business, because
Right.
my website looks good because they had like a, you know, a theme that was packaged and ready that suited my brand. You know, there was a lot more that I could do in terms of editing my theme that I didn't have to hire a developer for. I've probably spent, in the time that I've been with Shopify, maybe 1,500 in
Mhm.
the almost 2 years, and $1,500 on developer. Whereas before I'd spent like 15, like 10,000, I could say, on a
Wow.
developer
Yeah.
with BigCommerce,
Yeah.
and my website still didn't look as good as it did before, as it does now, I should say. So I'm actually a huge advocate of Shopify, and it doesn't help that they asked us to well, they asked me to be part of their supporting independence commercial back
Wow.
last fall. So they flew me to LA. It was amazing, and you know, we shot for a week, stayed in this amazing hotel. They covered everything, and then I got to be in this commercial that's been shooting literally all over the world. There's been people who have been coming to the site like, I saw you in a commercial, and it's so cool, you know. And so I think that makes me really biased. But I love Shopify.
I mean, it's a Canadian company. We're kind of biased towards that too. So it's always good to support Canada. But I mean, ultimately, it's a better platform for your business. And the user experience in terms of building out that storefront was much easier. And like you said, you've never looked back. So now, actually moving on to like the business itself, what are some of the key
Mhm.
strategies that you've used online? Because let's face it, a lot of entrepreneurs struggle with the fact they can set up a
Yeah,
shop, they can set it up, but now how do I get it to scale? How do I get people to come on my website and stuff like that?
yeah,
What are
yeah.
some key strategies that you used in terms of getting users to come to your website and grow your business?
Yeah, one of the biggest things that I would actually recommend, probably the number one thing, is you got to have a focus. I'm a part of the Shopify entrepreneurs Facebook group, and so there's a lot of people who, especially now, that are coming online, and they're kind of just selling everything. They're
Yeah.
selling a little bit of everything. They have phone cases and vegetable seeds and tables, and it's like, why not? Why would I leave Amazon and shop with you? Like,
Right.
there's no reason. So I think one of the biggest things that we need to look at as entrepreneurs who are starting an e-commerce store, this actually is what makes investors so anxious about investing in e-commerce,
Mhm.
because it's like, well, Amazon could do it.
Yeah.
Are you doing something that Amazon couldn't do? Are you selling something that's unique enough that can't just be, copied in a Chinese factory and sold on Amazon? So that's the biggest thing. Or if you're drop shipping from China, unless you're really focusing your drop shipping, I won't say anything bad about drop shipping. Wayfair is, the largest drop shipping site in the world,
Yeah.
Right.
but they focus their stuff on furniture for your home. It's very focused. So focus is number one. Focus on what it is that you're going to be selling. And it's better if it's something that you're passionate about, because then it's easier. It's easier to get through the rough times, because you're passionate about this particular thing. The second thing is, I actually garden. And it's really interesting to see the process of plants go from this tiny little seed, to, like, if you've ever seen a tomato plant, it
Yeah.
gets massive, literally like 8 feet tall, and that doesn't happen overnight.
Right.
In a lot of cases, I find that we might look at, maybe Uber or Facebook, and you look at a lot of these companies that you hear about often, and it seems like they were overnight success, so you expect it to be that way as well. And actually, when you look into them, I listen to the How I Built This podcast a lot, and
Right.
they talk about their origin stories, and they actually weren't. A lot of them were not overnight successes at
Yeah.
all. A lot of them almost went bankrupt more than 3 times, probably even more than three times. Like, they've gone bankrupt, or they've almost been at the brink of complete failure so many times. And so I think that we need to get it in our mind that things don't happen overnight. And actually, the slower you build, not to say that you should take forever. There is a moderate level of speed, but if you can lay solid foundations, like really, really solid, like really set them solid, there's a very high likelihood that you will succeed, make it through those slumps, get through, you know, that learning process, that learning curve, because there is a learning curve. Even if you do everything perfect, even if you have 500K today to put into a business, so finances are not a worry. There are mistakes that you will make. It's just the process. So really, really, one entrepreneur said, you know, screw unicorns, build camels. Like camels can walk through the desert. They can, you know, make it through dry, hot, you know, difficult conditions, you know, and they look the same as they did when they started, you know. So let's focus on doing things that way. Slow and steady wins the race.
Yeah. And I really like that. There's two things actually. One, obviously finding a product market fit and actually having value for your end consumer, and not just selling whatever's popular out there on Amazon or you see on Facebook and stuff like that. And two, and I think we've had this conversation on every podcast guest we've had, is patience. There is such a lack of patience with our generation. And
100%. Yeah.
One of the problems is, one, social media has obviously falsified the concept of success comes easy, or it can come easy. And we'll get to that in my next question after this. But I think we really need to understand that business takes time. Like this podcast is going to take time to grow. Your business itself is taking time to grow. You've been in business for, I think, over a year now. I mean, you're not going to go to like $5 million overnight. It doesn't work like that. And you learn as you kind of go through as an entrepreneur, right? And so in terms of this context of get rich quick, there's a lot of these Shopify gurus, Amazon gurus that sell you a dream in terms of making a ton of money. And I think the target is specifically millennials or younger individuals that get into this whole concept of you can make a ton of money real quick. So what are your thoughts on it? And like break it down, because you've been in e-commerce for over some couple years now. You said it takes time, but let's kind of take their scenario and say, is it actually doable?
Yeah. You know, it's funny because I see these ads and I'm like, I mean, you don't see Elon Musk, you know, telling you how to build a company. Like he's made his money. If you really are making money from what you're doing, like you're not selling a course, you know, trying to show me how to make money. So that's, I mean, I'm a skeptic. So I always think that way, like, you know, if it's working for you, then why are you selling me this? But one of the things that's really interesting is actually a lot of these gurus are getting, you know, exposed. The last couple months, a lot of people have been doing, you know, a lot of these, you know, YouTube videos and reviews about their reality.
Coffeezilla? That's the guy who helped a lot of individuals.
Yes. I'm actually on a Facebook group and they're constantly posting about this one particular guy. I actually don't even remember his name, but he's one of the main Shopify gurus. And I think, like, I watched this Herbal Essence documentary on Netflix. Okay. And I know, right now. And
I'm looking this up right now, but go on.
And they essentially said, you know, you tell this how you recruit people. Tell them you made, you know, $10,000 last month. Yeah, you're faking it, but fake it till you make it. Because if you tell them, then they'll sign up, and then eventually you'll actually be making that $10,000. And I think that's how they operate. You know, they'll say the sales that they are making, even though it's not true. But if you sign up, you know, it will be true soon, you know, that this is what they're making. So technically, maybe, I guess it depends on what you define as a lie, but I guess in their world, that's really not a lie. But I wouldn't bother. There's actually so many resources. And I'm really glad Shopify, they've taken this seriously, because a lot of these gurus were peddling, you know, the drop shipping, that was like hand in hand with their strategy. And Shopify, and that was really the core of that supporting independence commercial. To really, they chose specific companies that are doing really unique things. Like there was this one particular guy, too, in the ad, who makes guitars specifically for kids, and he used to make it in his basement. So they chose people with a backstory. And I think that they're trying to, gear their audience towards people with a backstory. They don't want people who are just, in it for the money and get rich quick, because that's not actually how it works. When you get in here, you'll see that it doesn't work that way at all. And so Shopify has so many resources. They have so many YouTube videos. They have actual like vetted partners. They have, Facebook groups. There's one official Facebook group. And even their support is so, so helpful. There's no reason why, if you're genuine, you cannot get free help. There's no reason why you need to pay for help unless you want to do something specific like ads or, your accounting. Something specific you should pay for, but not for someone to, set you up and, tell you how to make it big, So look for the free resources first.
Yeah. And I actually just want to comment on one of those things there. With relationship to kind of splitting up your expertise and actually using resources outside of your expertise, where do you kind of draw the line there? Because, with an online store, you're managing ads, you're all that, maybe in your case, inventory, procurement, all that. So where's the separation in terms of, my core skills are this, I'm going to manage X, Y, Z, and I'm going to, give the other stuff to someone else?
Yeah, you know what? It's been really, really hard for me, because there are times where I just don't have, like, I need to choose between inventory or ads. Mm-hmm. And if, in a good month, I have money for both, I don't have money to, pay someone to do my bookkeeping. So I have to do it myself, Right. And I mean, things have been better more recently, but for a long time it was like that. It was really, really like I had to do everything, and I was really, really tired. Even now, like we're actually getting ready to pitch on Dragon's Den on September 1st.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Are we the first ones to know this?
Officially, yes. Officially. Ooh. I've only shared it with my mentors. Yeah. Well, the reason why I haven't told anybody is because just in case it doesn't go well, like I don't have to, I don't have to follow up with how was it? Like I don't need to answer that because it didn't go well. But so officially, you guys are the only ones that I've told. But so getting ready for that, and then I'm a part of an accelerator, so getting the pitches together, and then running the business. And then last month we were doing a photo shoot to expand a product line. Like I've been busy. I also have 2 kids, mm-hmm. And I'm just, there are times where I honestly want to run away, just maybe buy a farm and just live a simple life. Like so overwhelmed. And it's like that for a long time. One of the things I realized in the past, I've worked in managerial positions, but prior to, within the same company, I worked entry-level positions, maybe customer service. Yeah. Once I got to the manager position, there was so much understanding for the work that my, I guess, technically subordinates were doing, that it made me a better manager. There was tasks that I would help them out with, that I understood what it meant to do this and how challenging it is, and what they need to get it done successfully. That made me better for it. So, the hope is that obviously you don't stay here, because it's hard, man. It's really hard to do everything yourself. Yeah. And it's hard to be juggling so many equally important priorities. But once you get to that stage, once you get past that, you will be better for it, because of all that you had to juggle, everything you had to do now. So
for sure. You said it all there, and I feel like you're a wizard here, because you're bringing us to our next point, because I wanted to ask you about entrepreneurship and kind of understanding understanding everything that comes with that, right? And like you just explained, it's not easy, and it takes a lot out of you. But it's that inner strength to keep pushing, right? So I got a quote of you off your website saying, hey, entrepreneurship is the key to female empowerment, and especially Black empowerment. So can you give us a little bit about how that's been for you in terms of your company and how that enabled that for yourself?
Yeah. So my husband is in the military.
Right.
And we move around a lot. So right now we're actually in a town called Deep River, Ontario. No one knows what that is.
Yeah, I don't.
Yeah,
I'm gonna be honest, I don't.
Yeah, you can Google it.
I'm doing it right now. I'm doing it right now.
And prior to that, we were in another town called Cold Lake, Alberta. And it's hard. It's been hard, especially, I have a business degree. I couldn't find a job in these small towns. There really isn't much industry, especially specifically business. So I found it really challenging. And I don't mind. I truly respect the role that women have to play in the home, as wives, as mothers. But I wanted something that would last longer than, after my kids grew up and left. Because they do. Kids grow up and leave. I grew up and left. And I wanted something that I could have for myself. So I found that this journey, especially specifically with e-commerce and this particular path that has so much flexibility for me, really allowed me to take a few aspects of my life that I couldn't control back into my hands.
Right.
And I find, and of course, not very many people will be in my particular situation, but women in general, Black women, we tend to find ourselves in, life just throws situations at us. Really anybody, doesn't have to be a Black woman or a woman specifically. You get dealt specific cards in life that you just don't choose. It's really, if you had a choice, you might not be where you are,
Right.
but you're there. So what are you gonna do about it? And I specifically find that women and minority women tend to find themselves in those situations that are uncontrollable more often than not. And being able to, if you can, go on the entrepreneurial path, it allows you to take bits of control back.
Yes.
It boosts your confidence. It's encouraging. It makes you feel capable. You realize how industrious you can be. And even if you weren't industrious to start with, you become industrious. All these skills come out that you didn't even know you had. You refine all these tools. You refine yourself. You hone in on who you are, what you want. And I think that's the exact definition of empowerment.
I love that. I love that so much. And Amin and I talk about this all the time because obviously we're still working our jobs as well, but it's kind of like entrepreneurship is kind of our calling because we recognize that like when you work in that traditional place, you're told what to do, right? You're told how you can be good. Whereas entrepreneurship, it's like you just gotta learn it and you learn whatever you learn along the way, right?
Yeah.
And it brings all of that out of you. So that was like I was sitting here being like, oh man, I should start working on something right now as you were talking. You know what I mean? So like if you were to tell kind of the next generation of female entrepreneurs, females of color, whatever that is, what around entrepreneurship, what would you kind of how would you phrase that? Just tell them to go for it.
Yeah. You may not have money. You might not have the support. You probably don't even have a solid or a refined idea. Maybe it's just something that you feel, maybe a question that you have, maybe something you need answered. Give it a try. One of the things that I dread is regret. Like I would hate to look back and wonder how would it turned out if I tried that thing. Of course you should try everything, but there are certain things when it comes to this journey. Try it. If you can, try it. If you can save a couple bucks, every week so you can put something together in 3 months so that you can try it out. Just try it. Literally, you'll never know. And even if you fail, at least you'll know why. And if you decide you want to get back up, then you know what you did wrong and how to correct it. So just try. Just give it a try.
Just for that lesson. I love it.
Yeah, I think that's powerful. And one of the other things I wanted to ask you is the role of female entrepreneurs who have been successful and their role as mentors. Often I find females are looking for that mentor, but a lot of times male entrepreneurs are glorified and they're the main ones.
Yeah.
And you can't really make the connection as a female founder to a male founder, I would say. So where are like areas where female founders can go to meet successful entrepreneurs that are females and have done it? What are other resources that they can use to explore that option?
Yeah, I mean, right now there's so much available online. Like you don't even have to leave your house. There are groups that are popping up, organizations that are putting themselves out there now that, you know, a lot more people, especially small business owners who have brick and mortar stores, are going online, or they're taking a different route. One of the biggest things for me, I try to connect with my local area. Actually, like we're so used to doing everything on social media, so you might meet someone who's so far away or whatever. But I actually found that it was more helpful to find someone locally. So I actually had, when I first started, I had two friends who were also women. They happened to be Black as well. And they either had a business or were starting a business or working on a business.
Right.
And it just made it easier. You know, we might not always talk about business. We can talk about other things. Maybe that's exactly what I need. Maybe I need a break from the business and I need to talk about something else. I just need to go out, you know, just relax. So I did find value in having like physical, or local, I should say, in-person relationships, looking for those similar-minded people. And how I found them is, you know, specifically in my case, both of them happened to go to my church, but you could put yourself out there at any non-business related event. Something that tends to be geared toward women, if you have kids, or anything that has to do with kids. There's a lot of women there. And a lot of them are trying to start something, or maybe they have an idea, or, you know, I watch Dragons Den and Shark Tank a lot, and a lot of these women who come together, they found each other through something that they were doing with their kids, you know? Yeah. So that's another place. One other thing that I found extremely valuable, and this is as far away as you can get. Like I mentioned before, I listened to a lot of business related podcasts, and they, you know, are very intentional with trying to diversify, you know, people who they have speak. And so hearing these female, you know, entrepreneurs who have succeeded, you know, have very large companies, very big companies, even though I don't know them and they'll never know me, was very encouraging. It really, really did help, because there isn't very many of us, right? So whether they're far away or close by, be open to learning from everyone's experience, as long as you can get a chance to hear their story. And then one other thing is, there are actually a lot of very understanding men, you know, male entrepreneurs, and there just happens to be a lot more of them, you know, who are successful just out of, you know, just the numbers. It's a numbers game. And it's okay to ask them for advice. I've actually almost all of my mentors that I've had have been men, and they gave me very valuable advice, extremely valuable. And even so, because they're from the outside, you know, looking in. So I think there's value where you want to see value.
No, I totally agree with that. And one part of entrepreneurship that is come a lot now is obviously venture capital and raising money for your business. And one of the stats I found appalling actually is only 1% of all venture funds go towards Black founders.
Yeah.
And so what have your like personal challenges been with this when it comes to potentially raising money? Because it's twofold for you, especially as being a Black founder, but also a female founder. So describe the experience in terms of pitching in front of investors and what their approach is, and your experiences has been.
Yeah, it's been interesting actually. A lot of what's been going on actually is, it actually has more to do with the industry. that I'm operating in more than necessarily me specifically. There's just this almost frivolousness that comes into people's minds when they think of wigs. It's like, okay, like, well, okay, maybe they might think of, Halloween costumes. Like, you don't take it seriously.
Yeah.
This is not a business. So I think there's been a lot of that more on the idea. And I think that happens to a lot of people. But one of the things that I found also is there being some very supportive, investors who say, Akos, like, you're not telling your story, and I happen to know it, so I know your story. You're not emphasizing the parts that need to be emphasized, that you're a mother, that your husband's in the military, you're a woman, and especially with what's going on now, you're Black. It needs to all be emphasized and showed. Obviously, you don't say, hey, I'm Black, but put yourself out there, in a way that shows, this is who I am. So there's a lot more openness now. And I think with this Black Lives Matter movement, there's just been openness where there wasn't before.
Yeah.
So I think now is the time to try whatever idea you have. If you're Black, if you're a woman, if you were anxious about it, you thought nobody would take you seriously, get into, of course, there are some people who won't take you seriously.
Yeah.
There always will be, but don't be discouraged. Don't be discouraged. Even if it's your brother or a friend, that's that one encouraging voice, take that so that it can lift you up so you can try again and go at it again.
Exactly.
And hone in on your story, own your challenges, your personal endeavors, own it, and convey that in a way that shows your strength and the validity, if not in the idea, in you.
Yeah, I think that's very important. When you look at a lot of venture capitalists and investment dollars, they're actually investing in the individual first. So that whole idea of you pitching the story, that's kind of what they're selling. I mean, kind of buying into at an early stage, because your commercialization strategy hasn't really maybe gotten product market fit, or the distribution channels have not really commercialized or matured. And so they can't really assess whether or not that's going to happen or not. They can assess, of course, like, you're a mother, your husband's in the military, you're working your ass off in terms of getting this done. And on top of that, it's a unique product. So invest in me, because this is my story, and I also watch a lot of Shark Tank and Dragon's Den, and Sheriston does too. And a lot of them always have that sentimental story attached to it. Especially the female entrepreneurs, I really find that their stories are very, very powerful. Usually mothers who have, struggled with something that's happened in their life, but they've come out on top. So I think when it comes to investors, especially venture capital, I mean, it's positive that it's starting to open up towards minorities, Black founders, colored founders, whatever it may be. But the other question I had is, like, do you think by maybe having more VCs that are of color, maybe address and help this problem in terms of mitigating, say, that 1%, and maybe growing that number in terms of the percentage of dollars out there for founders?
Yeah. I mean, like, for example, me, one of the things, like, if someone buys my, business and I have $100 million, I don't know, say tomorrow, one of the things that I would do is actually start a fund and actually focus it towards women, because I knew how challenging it was for me. So when you have more people who've been through a specific challenge, they have more sympathy for people who are going through that challenge. So it's hard to sympathize. I don't know why we're like this, but it's hard for us to sympathize with people who we don't really understand. Like, we haven't walked in their footsteps. So that's why we need more female, more Black, more minority investors. Not because the other people are not good enough or they don't care. Maybe you have a good idea or not, but they won't understand the behind the scenes intricacies of, what makes you you, because they actually haven't walked, in your path. So I really hope that more of us can, especially with COVID, I really don't know what the future has in store, but I really hope more of us can, get to that place where we can then invest in people who, you know, look like us and have been through the same experiences.
And I actually really, really love that point because, and I'm going to give a shout out to my boy, Toby here, because he mentioned something, the power of imagery as well. So he gave the reference of Michael Jordan, right? And Nike invested in him, saying that, hey, in his first year, I think he did like $126 million in sales. The key concept there was Nike didn't invest in a campaign to sell to African Americans. They saw a successful Black individual and it empowered people to buy into that. And the same way where we kind of look at like VCs, and in your case, for example, you said understanding that individual and how they've walked the walk and you can talk the talk. Like if us as 3 colored individuals, like we probably understand each other's struggle a bit more. If we were to maybe talk to a Caucasian person or a white person, there is that separation in terms of understanding sometimes. And so I think you're spot on with that. So I really like that view. And it's funny that there's more than one person that obviously has a similar kind of logic in terms of that approach.
That's Toby over at Shopify, by the way. Just clarify.
Oh, okay. Wow. Because when you said Toby, I was like, oh, okay, friend named Toby. Wow. Yeah. No, and what's great is one other thing that people don't really mention much, and I guess it kind of gets you know, lost in the women and Black and minority, but also immigrants. Like it's hard, man. Our parents, they made a really challenging decision to leave their homes. Like a lot of people think you know, a lot of people have very negative connotations or very negative you know, perceptions of immigrants. I'm not going to get into that, but there are challenges, and we need more, you know, first generation Canadians who have that understanding, you know, to you know, be in this, you know, investment world, to bring up others. Yeah.
I'm almost on the fence with that. You know what I mean? Like I agree wholeheartedly, but I'm also like, it's almost that reluctance from the market to invest in those demographics that puts that chip on our shoulder to make us want to be better, right? So it's like a fine balance between those things. But yeah,
it's true. And I definitely see that. I think I definitely see that. There's a lot of things that I've been through that, you know, I remember some of my friends in school, they had no idea what I was talking about. And it made me work a certain way, made me do things a certain way. So I definitely agree with that. I see that perspective.
100%. So that kind of brought us to our questions around your business and your journey. But we like to end off with kind of like an impromptu lightning round where we hit you with some questions, 4 or 5 questions here. And you have like 10 seconds to answer. Just say the first thing that comes to mind. And just to kind of understand more of you and your personality and who you are behind the scenes. And you can definitely use this as clips to woo the Dragon's Den crew when you go up there, you know?
Okay, I'm ready.
All right. First question, something easy. What is your favorite book of all time, if you had to pick?
Favorite book of all time? Oh, Lord. No, I can't remember a single book. Come on,
let's make it broad. Favorite book or movie of all time?
Oh, my goodness. You made it too broad. We have to narrow it more.
I was trying to help.
Okay. I was a really, really, really big fan of The Book of Negroes. It's a Canadian author, actually. Really interesting story. I'm a really big fan of, I don't like happy endings, you know.
Okay.
Not realistic. But it was like a book that had so many like unhappy endings and then like that one satisfying happy ending that was like, okay, I can go to sleep now.
Wow. Fair. I like it. You're like positive, but you're cynical. You're like, you don't like happy endings. All right. So you've had a long day dealing with, I don't know, inventory and marketing ads and all this stuff. How do you come home and unwind?
Oh my goodness. I come home and do more work. I said it before. Yeah, that's how I unwind. I mentioned it before. I actually have a garden. And man, do I love being outside and just working on my garden. And if I'm not outside working on the garden, I'm watching gardening videos on YouTube.
All right. All
Yeah,
right. We
so
love it.
that's what I do. That's what I do.
Awesome. Awesome. One question about the industry. In terms of the beauty industry, what is a company or trend or something that is exciting you the most right now?
Just any industry?
In the beauty industry.
Okay. Beauty industry. I really love like Fenty Beauty. They came out with this like, and it was revolutionary. You know, she had like 90, almost 100 shades. So I of shades of foundation. Sorry. And I love that inclusion of shades of colors. Even Caucasians, like there's lots of shades of pink and pale and nude, and they have lots of shades too, and they weren't their needs weren't being addressed.
Right.
And so Rihanna came and just kind of blew it up, and now a lot of people are following suit. You have nude undergarments, nude bras, or not nude, but like nude to each race's nude,
Yeah.
Right.
And you're seeing that a lot more, and I really, really like that because man, it was so inconvenient before. It was just inconvenient, trying to make a foundation work for your skin tone.
100%. Yeah, I mean, I didn't know that issue, but I'm definitely appreciative of what you did. So lastly, the question that we get a lot of heat for is related to food. So do you say yes or no to pineapples on pizza?
Oh, Lord, no.
Yes.
Oh man. You're like in the 1%. I think me and almost
Really?
90, most of our guests and myself love it, but you and Amin don't.
I hate it.
What? I would have actually thought we were the majority. Like, it's a ridiculous topping. Come
Maybe it's
on.
just our guest list thus far, but
Yeah, maybe.
we gotta do an Instagram poll for this,
Guys.
just
Yeah,
see
and
what's
then
good.
only choose the people who will say no.
Yeah.
God, no,
Interview on your show.
It's the fine balance between sweet and savory. You guys need it. You guys need it.
Fruit doesn't belong on a pizza.
No. Well, I mean, technically,
Tomatoes, but that's
fruit.
that's
It's something.
It's
Yeah,
acceptable.
yeah. No, I understand. Trust me.
Yeah, for sure. Hey, this was great. We got so much information out of this, and this was such a fun conversation. I think what your company is doing is going to revolutionize a lot of things, and I think you guys have a bright future, and good luck with Dragon's Den, 100%.
Thank you.
Let us know when you get on, because we'll be rooting for you in the back, and then we'll watch your episode for sure and share it too,
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if I do well, I'm gonna let everybody know.
Hey, just making it to that stage is a
Yeah.
W at some levels.
It's true. It's true. Yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much.
Well, thank you guys. It was such a pleasure.